Hello, and thank you for tuning in to the Flatirons Syndicate Motorsports Podcast. This show is brought to you by Flatirons Tuning, your source for any aftermarket or OEM Subaru parts. Be sure to check out our store at flatironstuning.com and stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning. Welcome back to the Flatirons Syndicate Podcast. We're here today in the shop. We've got Tasso and Dylan sitting in with us. For topics today, just want to start off by talking a little bit about the Ascend, because Dylan, you were out there with the car this past weekend. So this is an event at the Pikes Peak International Raceway. It was kind of a time attack, drift, concert, festival.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything.
It seemed like initially it was more marketed as like a time attack focused event, but they kind of pivoted a little more recently into having drifting, live music, street drags, like all kinds of stuff going on. I felt like it was a really good event overall. It kind of tried to include everybody. It was their first year, so there were some kinks for sure. Not quite enough shade, but that's always an issue at PPIR.
Yeah.
And
you're in a bowl that seems like it's underneath a magnifying glass.
Mm-hmm. It's super dry, super hot. But overall the music was fun. The schedule, the way they set it up, it kind of like alternated between time attack, drifting, the drags. So it was set up to get the crowd out all throughout the day for all the different events. There was a session of time attack, a little session of drift, a little session of time attack, and then lots of like night drifting and a big drone show where they like synced up the drift cars to the drones and everything. It was it was a hoot for sure.
Nice. Well, this was our first time, basically the first competition for our Pikes Peak car. Now that we've got the standalone installed, so this is the whole idea of shaking the car down in high plains was to get ready so we can get Scott in the car and really shake it down in competition at this event. How did the car do? Any high points or low points?
It did really well. I think Scott was surprised with the new ECU, constantly like noticing little things like warnings from Harvey and all kinds of little details that you don't normally get with a street car. So that was cool. We had a lot more access to sensor data, which was just really helpful for figuring out what's going on with the car. We set some warnings because in the past, in the shakedown, we had dealt with the low oil pressure issues, and we just wanted to be really aware of that. So, Harvey had set warnings so that Scott, anytime he saw that, was able to just take cool down laps and take it easy. Throughout the whole weekend, he had constant improvement. I'm pretty sure he made it down to like a 102.5 at the end of the weekend. Started out around like 105 around the track. The track record, I think, was like 53 seconons. I don't believe anybody broke that.
Yeah, that was an unlimited too. Yeah. That's by Ferris cartoon, which is a ridiculous time.
We didn't expect to break that, but we were inching towards that time and made some good progress.
Well, and we were in Super 200, so that was like unlimited is like Hoosier Slicks and all that. We were on 200 treadwear tires.
Yeah,
so
there was no
200 treadwear tires, so they're sticky, but definitely not Hoosiers.
Yeah, but great time overall. We had a lot of different sessions. There was 4 sessions the first day to the second day, so that meant we had a lot of opportunity to get the car out, get it back in, hear Scott's feedback, and kind of tweak things. It pointed out that we really need to get that brake bias controller we've been talking about in the car. He was really excited for the sequential because one of the other Subarus pitted near us, Joachim, he actually has a sequential.
Right.
Big rotated turbo setup in his GR hatchback, and he was having a lot of fun the whole weekend. So it was cool to get to talk to him. We got to give him some feedback and kind of help him diagnose some trouble he was having with his AOS, and it was a great time being out there with the community for sure.
I think the foundation's set, and we know what the next step is for the car. So now it's time to actually get it all together, put it in there, and figure out the next set of shenanigans.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Always something with race cars.
Yes. So that was a good time. Now, Tasso, in the last handful of months, and definitely since you were last on, you are still working on your new rally car or hill climb build.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I guess just a quick update. How is that progressing?
It's not.
It's not? Slow?
Yeah, it's slow. I've been doing a lot of other stuff in the last couple months. The short answer to like where it's at is slowly but surely stuff is happening. Working on a motor right now that we're pretty excited about. It should be cool, like just better in every way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the last motor was a hot mess, which is hot. but is also a mess.
Yeah.
And the more like looking at just how slapped together it was, I'm surprised it ran so well for so long. As we kind of learn more about just how hot messy it was.
Right.
So this next one should have all that stuff done. It should be better in every way.
Yeah.
It'll be, at the moment, we're assembling parts and machining for a D-stroker.
Mm-hmm.
So a 235 or whatever that is.
Right.
99.75 bore and a 75 mil stroke. So it should be good. Higher compression, everything tightened up. Every bearing clearance, every ring gap, all that kind of stuff kind of
Part of the mess with the old
optimized.
one was it was very loose.
Yeah, the last one was loose in every direction.
They like to breathe.
It like,
Yes.
it likes to breathe. Yeah, it's
Sweat
like
horsepower.
Yeah, it moved hundreds of dollars of oil into the catch cans over the course of its life.
Right. Right.
So yeah, less of that, which is exciting. It, like the quality of the machining, everything. Performance Porting has done our stuff in the past, and they've done a really good job. We're working with a new person now. So I say that because I said the quality of machining. Not that Performance Porting ever did a bad job by any means. I'm extremely happy with Dustin and working with him, and that was always great. But some kind of higher level motorsport stuff going on.
He's got a new some new ideas.
I think we're gonna try and announce it soon. I don't know if that's
we can
quite official yet. Yeah,
we can keep people on hook. That's fine.
But
I remember you had someone you were talking about working with, and then there was a guy who came into the shop that was trying to get in touch with you. Did you end up going with the people
different.
that you've
not
known?
that guy.
Yeah, it's a different person.
So this is all a connection through other sponsors and stuff like that.
Nice.
Should be cool. I think we're gonna work on he does a lot of motor manufacturing. So maybe we'll try and put together a package that's you can give me the OTC goods or something like that.
Right.
It should be good. I'm excited for it. I'm excited to share more information about it kind of too as time goes on here. But there will be, more money in the machines doing the machining than many other operations are together and stuff like that. So it's nice stuff. I'm excited for it. I'm really excited to drive this car. Every time, every step of the way. I don't know when the last time I talked about stuff was, but some month or two ago I went up with Fiat.
Right.
And we
actually
located the seat in the car, which is my first chance to get a feel for when the seating position will be further back and lower than anything I've done before. And the steering wheel will be exactly where I want it because we're putting it exactly where I want it and stuff like that. Pedal box will be exactly where it should be and stuff like that. So, and there will obviously be some fine tuning to do. But it makes me really excited to sit in the car.
Sure.
My thing always with race cars, I'm about 6 feet tall, but I have a long torso for my height, it turns out. I had no idea. I lived my whole life with this affliction until I got into race car stuff and tried to figure out why the hell seats don't ever fit me and why my head is always in the roof of the car. And so I'm always trying to get my seats lower. And there's only so far down you can go when you're using stock mounting points and adapter rails and stuff like that, which is what I have been doing. But with the level of fabrication going into this car, just having that seat, if nothing else, just having my seat as low as I want it.
Right.
I'm really excited for that. Everything should be right there. For the shifter, it's not going to be in the stock, even though it's still going to be H pattern, shifter. It's not going to be coming out the stock hole. The actuating rod will still go through that hole, but the shifter itself will be higher and further back to match where the seat is and stuff like that. And so it, without having to go to goofy CNC $1,000 off the shelf shift adapter setup thingies like that, it'll still have all the awesome tightness of a really high shifter but really short throw and wheel right there and everything. And I don't know. That stuff's keeping me motivated to do this. So.
And probably related to keeping you motivated. As we're recording this, as we're sitting here today, this is the day after the 4th of July, which is commonly known as the 5th of July.
Yep.
But when you first started, most places, I can't speak for everyone, but when you first started with getting the car put back together, when did you think it was going to be done? When was your target date to basically?
I aimed for the beginning of the season, which is now 2 or 3 months ago.
That was April, May?
May.
Something like that.
Shit happens.
It does. Well, and this is something that we've run into it a time or two. The last time that we just like came head on into it was like getting the standalone put in the car. The initial estimate from the guys at Inmoose is like, oh yeah, 2 months. In and out, bring it to us, right around Thanksgiving time, and we'll have it back to you first of the year, no problem.
Mm-hmm.
And we got it back like 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things where it was a way more complicated project than they anticipated. Like there was way more decisions to be made. That's part of the artifact of those decisions is now we need these connectors for these sensors and whatever.
Right.
And what other things should we add since we're in here? And then now we have to source those sensors, and like it just things with the race car can tend to draw on a little bit.
And it's not even like, in fairness, we're not doing anything that's completely uncharted with either of these cars, right? There are plenty of people that have made hot Subarus and made really good driving positions before.
Right.
But not as many as there are people that have bolted a oil filter onto their stock oil change in 20 minutes at the oil changers, right? Like it's a even though we may not be breaking new ground in the world of automotive performance, we're still on, less trodden ground.
Right.
And every new ground we find is unique to the ground that we're standing on, kind of thing. My analogy is falling apart. But regardless, there's so much individual development that goes into every car when you're not putting together just a hot kit, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure whoever NASCAR team du jour can make a new NASCAR in a day, right? Because they're taking all these super hot parts and just slapping it on. But if they have to develop a new car, that takes them a year or two, even with a $50 million budget. So
yeah, and they have the luxury of having done it many times before.
Yeah.
Like, and even if there's a new designed car, they have a real depth of experience to draw from, to look at and go, well, I think this should be here.
Mm-hmm.
I think this should be there. It's your first car. You bought that car with the cage in it, right?
No cage. And so
okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say that this is my first build, the current one, from the ground up.
That's what I was
and
thinking.
Every
the
part
first
of the
ground,
last car was touched by me at some point. But this is the first time that I've gone all the way back to the blankest canvas. Basically, a VIN plate and a layer of sheet metal or two. And started from that point with a blank slate.
And you have the luxury of also having driven and lived in that car for multiple years, because you build a car, you run it, you get familiar with it.
Right.
But there's always things you'd want to change. So it's that famous saying of like, well, if I ever do this again, I'm definitely going to do X.
Mm-hmm.
Like your seating position.
Yeah, and it's worth saying. I could have just slapped together a hurried reproduction of the last car with a different VIN number. Right. Or maybe the same VIN number. No, definitely don't do that. Could have done that in a couple months. I would have been back out there, and that was a record-setting, championship-winning quality car. But I made the conscious decision that I didn't want to just do the same thing again. Because the goal is never to stay the same, or to just do good enough, or to just get out there.
And you've learned there's things that you now know that you couldn't address in the last car, that now coming in with a fresh build, putting in a new cage, there's now some things like there's one chance you have to do this, and that is now with the cage
you're
going in.
You're going to weld yourself into some corners if you don't address that right away.
Right.
So it's the goal for me has never been just to participate. After the first race that I participated in, it was no longer that. Yeah. It was now win class. Right. Once I did that, it was then win championship. Right. And that's done. Set a course record, win one overall. done. Win overall for a season. Perfect
Right.
season. That's the goal.
That's the goal. All right.
That's a big undertaking. I almost worry about saying it out loud because for one thing, it sounds like we're gonna get our explicit E here. Fuck this cocky dickbag, right? Like,
Yep, that was yeah.
that's explicit
got
E
it.
right
They got
there.
it,
Yeah,
yep.
you're welcome. But there's no other way to put it. Like it's, and I'm sure people have said that in the past too. You know,
Well, but you
why
have
is
to
this tryhard
have
out here?
like if you set out goals, you accomplish those goals. The only way to like kind of keep the excitement going is to then now I got to set a new goal.
Yeah.
And so if you
Yeah.
won a hill climb overall, like why not try and win multiples overall?
Yeah, no, it's definitely not to say that anybody is wrong for just wanting to get out there and have fun.
Sure.
There's absolutely no version of this that's me telling you how you should feel about what you're doing. But that's not what I'm doing.
Well,
And that's not why I do it. Yeah.
When you get into motorsports, I mean, people get into it for different reasons, and like people are going to be maybe equally passionate about it, about motorsports, about driving, about competing, but you could certainly be equally passionate about it for different reasons.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there are times when I've started thought I have this legacy now.
Yeah.
A solid week of work. I could get that thing on stage.
Right. Right.
No, that's not the goal.
No.
It will at some point. Once the hill climb car gets together, the goal is to take the legacy and make it stage capable.
Right.
In either like an NA or limited 4-wheel drive class.
So this is the other car.
For those of you that may not know, Tasso has also picked up a 90s legacy chassis.
It was the last time I was on the podcast.
Well, I don't think we talked about it.
What number of podcast is this?
This is, I feel on the spot right now.
Mm-hmm.
115, I think.
Only a couple. I don't
Only
know.
a couple.
Just a few.
Yeah. I have an old legacy. I'd love to do like a Group A.
That is
knockoff.
caged and like has been.
Yeah, the
tracked
cage
in-
isn't legal though for anything.
okay.
So I would have to recage it real quick.
Okay.
But when you're not building a cage for ultimate lightness, ultimate seating position, ultimate hot dog, then it's a lot faster to come together, right? So.
All right, so related to all of this, like before we were getting on and talking about this, the question came up, and I think this is where it's all relevant to everything that we've said as far as motivations, as far as builds, the time that it takes to do a build, all that. The question is there a wrong way to get involved in motorsports? Is there a wrong approach to decide, this is what I want to do, but then like take the wrong path? Or make some decisions that make that path a little bit more bumpy or treacherous than it could be to get in there. And based on your experience this time around and some of our experience, the answer I think is actually yes. But maybe some of those wrong decisions or maybe wrong is too strong of a word, but I'm just going to use it because I can't think of another one off the top of my head, that make life harder as you're trying to follow this dream and follow this path.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot to this. And as a topic, I'll disclaim up front, it's going to sound like we're naysaying and super negative about it.
It might.
I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I plan on being real negative.
There's a lot of things down this path where if you get advice, that the advice will seem like people are naysaying, that people are, for lack of a better term, the one we use around here is ruining Christmas. Mm-hmm. Like you've got a lot of excitement, a lot of enthusiasm, and people are going to tell you no, or that hey, you should really try doing this, or you should do this instead. But a lot of times, that kind of that counterpoint comes from the luxury of experience, or having done it, or some cases having made the same mistake before, that you're walking down that path.
Yeah, no, I'm just sharing from pain.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, some of the most blunt things I'll say are because I was on the other side, and I wish someone had been able to express to me what I'll say.
Right.
But it's going to come across a little negative, and it's all going to be from a place of we want someone to succeed and not burn out before they start. So keep those things in mind. Because the first thing I'll say is no one gives a fuck about you.
He's sitting over there. Yeah,
whoever
you can't see him, but yeah,
there's no one there. There's a box of t-shirts.
Well,
and that's a real harsh way, but just to say that up front, it's not entirely true. The truth is, we give a fuck about you, right?
Sure.
We want you to do well, but those people also wish they had someone that cared about them too. You know, I don't know if this makes sense.
Like when you have a goal, it's easy to like put yourself at the center of the universe when you have your goal for your whatever race car, anything in life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think, point to your point, that is like really easy to forget that hey, there's actually probably 50, maybe more people trying to work with all of these shops you're trying to talk to about these different things that you want done, and like. As much as it's the only thing going on in your life and you might need to get your car done by XYZ deadline, you got to remember that there are thousands of people out there who are involved in motorsports and, cars at large.
And who have been exactly in your shoes.
Right.
And also did not get a handout.
Sure.
Right?
Sure. Well, and I guess kind of related to that is you have this idea, you have this car, you have this plan, and you're going to start executing this plan. And then you go to a shop and you say, I want you to do this. And they're like, no. And so there's having, I guess the first mistake, that I would quantify it is not being flexible.
Yeah.
Or in not listening to experience.
Mm-hmm.
Like I wanted, I don't know what the example would be. I want to take my V8 4Runner that I really love, and I think this would have an edge as a rally car.
Yeah, because it has a track.
Yeah, because so I'm going to make this into a rally car, even though it's not even a car, it's technically a truck, but I'm going to do it. And then you go to a shop and I'm like, this is what I want to do. I'm like, well, you can't do it because of this and this. Like, listen to the reasons, but if it's something where they're coming at it not just as a flat no, but it's from an experience or from a reading of the rule book or from like, well, no, you've got to do this, this, and this. Like the one, I guess, related to this too that came up a lot was people that wanted to get into rally and they have a WRX, it's turbocharged, and I'm gonna rally this car, especially with Rally America. I think ARA is somewhat similar to this. You could not just jump in and drive an all-wheel drive turbocharged car. You have coefficient points.
You get a restrictor. Like an even more restricted restrictor.
Yeah.
Get ready for 150 horsepower, maybe.
Yeah, probably 100 horsepower.
Yeah.
But the point was, you could. Well, they made it really, really challenging. And then for a while with Rally America, you just could not do it. You had to either drive a front-wheel drive car or a non-turbo all-wheel drive car first and prove that you could basically finish the rallies. You're not going to be crazy and wreck on stage and stuff like that before they would let you run the faster car.
Yeah, it's worth saying. It's not because they don't like you.
Right.
Even though I just said what I said earlier. It's not because people want to put you down because they got put down. This is just generational trauma being propagated.
Right.
It's because they want you to survive to the next event. They want you not to come in and burn out all that money you thought you had saved up on one event and never come back to rallying. They want you to establish good fundamentals and have a long, happy time rallying.
Right.
Like the rally community doesn't want to keep people out, even though there are barriers to entry.
Right.
Those barriers aren't there to keep you out. They're there to get you in a measured way in order to have a long, happy time.
And to keep you in.
Yeah.
Like
and just
cages
safety.
and safety equipment.
Right.
Like there's barriers to entry so that you can stay there and continue to rally into the future.
Yeah. So I'll amend what I said because you have the soundbite now for the sick intro.
Right.
Nobody gives a fuck about you.
Right.
I'll amend it. You don't know what you're doing. It's okay to not know what you're doing. It's not going to go to your plan. Get over it.
Right. Man, so with race cars, that would be one piece of advice. So rarely does anything go to plan.
Yeah.
Like you could spend all the time in the world, sit down, come out with the most perfectly thought out plan, and the first thing you should do is take that plan, ball it up, light it on fire, throw it out the door, and then just deal with
these
what
aren't just
what
for the new guy
comes
too either. Right? This is not just me talking down because I got talked down to.
Right.
This is still stuff I learned. I've been doing this racing now for the better part of a decade. In that one car, and still learning stuff about stuff I was doing wrong the whole time. This is not stuff. If you can remember this, if you can remember that you don't know what you're doing, that's okay. Seek help. Be appreciative for it, because you'll never get on the positive side of the help teeter-totter until you become the person that starts helping other people.
Right.
So you're going to spend a lot of time on a lot of people's debt, and you're never going to really be able to pay that back to that person. You have to just pass on to the next person, which is,
that's a really good point, though. Like, the people who are naysaying you, they're not necessarily naysaying you for a bad reason. I mean, we've talked about this already. It's like they're trying to pass on that generational knowledge of like, hey, I banged my head against this cement wall for multiple seasons. Mm-hmm. Don't do that. Don't make the mistake I did.
You need to get your seating position better. Right. Like
it. Yeah. I mean, I remember once at some point, I think it was when you were doing the hill climb and Reese Millen was there, and he was telling you about how important seating position was and shifting and like everything had to be optimized.
It's like steering too, like steering ratio. And I was like, I know it needs to be faster, but it made a really big difference going to a much quicker rack.
Yeah.
And constant stuff. I like any good race car driver. We all feel the same way. If we just had what the other guy has, we would beat them. I don't care who it is. Michael Schumacher, not now. But he's not dead. But man, I love him. Lewis Hamilton right now. Max Verstappen for years.
Well, actually, Lewis Hamilton's a perfect example because he's not had the front running car for the last couple of years.
Yeah.
So
everybody except for Sebastian Ogier or Loeb.
Yeah.
All these guys. I think I could beat Sebastian Ogier if I had the same car and a little bit of practice.
Right.
Like
a morning,
all race car drivers
with the car.
All race car drivers feel the same way. I know you prescribed a race car driver. You're like, man, I'm pretty good at Assetto Corsa. If I just had the car Tasso has, I bet I could beat him. Sounds good, man. Build it. Yeah. You want to know every detail? I'll tell you every detail. Do it.
I want to come back to and make just one other point about this, which is if somebody gives you advice that seems like it's counter to all of your goals, the other thing is whoever that person is, like it could be a shop, it could be somebody at the event or whatever, or somebody from another team, who knows. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is, if you can put aside the frustration of the answer that you're getting that's not what you want, and okay, tell me more. Mm-hmm. Like okay, I hear what you're saying. My Foreigner is not going to make a good rally car.
Yeah.
Give me a couple of reasons why. Tell me more reasons why. If you can set aside the frustration and actually follow that conversation further, what you're likely to find in many of these cases is that willingness to have a conversation about it. Not even to just accept it, but like, okay, I'm willing to have a conversation about this. Let's actually talk about this. That in and of itself can break down barriers, and that can actually open some doors for you. Absolutely. that it's worth keeping in mind in each one of these steps of your build or getting involved. Like if you can just kind of set aside the frustration and really engage with that person, talk to them and like, okay, why are you telling me this? Where does this come from? And they say, well, I beat my head against a wall for 2 years. I kept trying to do this. Yeah.
But recognize that information comes with a dollar value. Even if you're not specifically paying for it right there, someone is donating that information to you.
In the form of time.
In the form of time or wisdom, the costs that it took them to develop that information. Right? So, and you'll see this. If you are humble and a good listener and you ask a couple questions, the busy tuner who doesn't really have time for your stuff because they still got a couple tunes to get through that day, they'll go, and you'll see him go through the mental thought process of, they got to learn somehow, and this is how I learned too. And they'll make a conscious decision to share, $200, $500, $1,000 of information with you.
Right.
And that has real value that a lot of people miss.
Yeah.
Because it's just words. But
those words, it's like, it feels like it's counter to what your goal might be at the time. Like, that's one really important part of that is, when you're getting advice from somebody, I can't speak for everyone, but for the most part, someone who's been involved in motorsports, if they're giving you advice, even if it's counter to your goals, they probably see what you're trying to do, and they're trying to help you in some way. Even if they're telling you, like, no, you can't do a 600 horsepower street car that you can also rally. Like,
Right.
there's a reason for that. It's not that they don't want you to achieve your goals. It's that they see, oh, well, there's maybe a part of what you want that you can achieve. But this thing that you're asking for is too much. Or unless you have hundreds of thousands of dollars, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And, like, just because they're saying that doesn't mean they don't want you to achieve your goal. It's more likely that they're actually trying to help you and donate that time, that value, so that you're not struggling.
And I tell you, like, from being on my side of the phone for whatever time that I have, you run into these problems and it's super frustrating. And a big motivator when I have somebody call me up and wants to do something that's like, oh man, I really don't think so, is I don't want them. I really want to try and save people the frustration. If I've gone down this path and I've tried to do something and we've done it in the shop or with whatever, it's a problem that we've had with our race car. Perfect example here is like cooling and all of our overheating issues, where it largely stemmed down to just incorrect radiator cap location. I mean, what I want, that was almost a decade. I mean, I can't, not a lot of racing, but there was a lot of time involved in chasing our tails there. And do I want to save people that time? Absolutely.
And it probably costs $100,000. And all the failures, the time, the entry fees that never were seen through to a checkered flag, the employees who had to be places.
Well, the things that never were quite as good as they could have been. Right. Like, I mean, maybe even not even just from a dollar standpoint, but just from a result standpoint. Like, if we would have figured that out way back at the beginning, I mean, our progression would be so much further along now compared to what it was then.
So that's, $5, $10, $15 of parts, but $100,000 and 10 years of information.
Right. If I can save you all of that, and like, here's this easy thing that makes a world of difference. Try this, or do this. For whatever you do, don't do this. It's like it's trying to help remove that frustration. I mean, that's like having been through it. Like, that can be a big motivator for people. And so if you're open to that conversation, and the big thing that you just made is respectful of the time that they're giving you, the value of the time that they're giving you to answer these questions, that can open doors and be massively
Every
helpful.
single thing that a person who is doing it tells you, they have decided to take the time and invest something into you, even if they know they will never see it back. Right? They're making a donation to you of their time and their information and their financial equivalent.
Right.
And so treat that as that.
Yeah.
Right? Treat it the same as someone giving you a $1,000 bill.
Right.
And being like, I got $1,000 bills when I was at your stage, so here's yours. Right? Say thank you.
You're moving to the other side of that teeter-totter,
right.
And now they're paying it forward. Yep.
Yeah, so that's, I don't know, hopefully this is coming across good to the listener, because there are ways that can just frustrate people. Like, all right, screw these guys.
And I should say right off the gate, like, these kind of interactions don't always go to plan, and they don't always go smoothly. No. They don't always. But
and we may find stuff that we don't know everything about either in the conversation.
For sure. For sure. But it's just like, I think if you go into it with that a little bit in mind, that you have a better chance of a good outcome and actually really learning something that you really did not know that you need to know.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. The other thing that we have to talk about here is time. Mm-hmm. Because
it's going to take longer than you think, for sure.
It's going to take, and it can take way longer than you think in a lot of cases. And if you're not prepared for that at the word go, like, this can be a frustrating thing. So it's not even, I have a plan. Everybody's telling me that my plan has worked. It's a proven plan, but I want to make the beginning of the season, and now you're halfway into the season and you still don't have your car back. That can be really frustrating. So that can feel like it's a barrier of a different kind, a barrier of like, oh, this guy's slow walking me. Why is he not giving me any priority to get this done? And there's just so much involved sometimes.
Like, not having the car back is not like I went and paid to, like, hey, give me a delivered car here, right? Like, this is one early step in the process to get some certified welding done.
Right.
There's still a lot of work in my future too. So much work. This will take. I'll be out of the car probably for more than a year. By the time the car is actually running again. When
did you first start? When did you get the shell and start working?
In September, right?
Okay.
I think. I don't know. I was knocked out.
Something like that. How long did it take you to get the shell? Like 2 weeks or a month?
Something like that, to find a car that wasn't stupid priced.
Right. So let's say October, like middle to end of October. If you're not back in the car by middle to end of October, then the whole process will have taken a year at that point.
Yeah, and I think shopping for the shell in the first place and making a plan for what I wanted to do was part of the same. It's part of the build process, I think, right? Like, and I think that's not a bad thing for anyone listening to think about either. Is the build process is not just bolting on a turbo, or something like that, right? It's It's figuring out what you want to do. It's comparing rule books of everything that you may want to do. It's seeing where you may build yourself into a corner if you go down one path too far that may lock you out of another path, kind of thing. So
there's a lot of complicated decisions.
There are a lot, and ask for help. And the first thing, also, that first step a lot of people should do, especially if you don't know if you want to do rally specifically or something like that, where it's a very specific build to do stage rally. Stage rally cars are good at nothing else, and nothing else is good at stage rally.
Right.
They're cool, but they're extremely specific cars. So if your only impression is playing, on your home sim rig, which for one thing, if you have a home sim rig, sell it and get a car instead.
I disagree, but that's another one.
No, I know. I just feel like starting fights today.
He says after he just got off the sim rig in the front of the shop,
that's true.
Not 5 minutes before we were recording.
BeamNG is my favorite thing. BeamNG is my favorite game. Yep. It's so good.
But I think what Tasso was talking about kind of speaks to setting your goals with a level head and not exceeding your expectations too much, not expecting to get everything done. Participate versus maybe setting a goal for I'm gonna have my car done by this day. Set a goal kind of like what Tasso was talking about, where I want to win one event this season. I want to get my car out to an event, win one thing, and try to get it ready for what I want.
And even then, just the realization or the understanding that building a race car, if you have a car that's not a race car and you're going to turn that into a race car, there's a ton of time involved with that, and it is way more complicated, and there's way more to do there's way more that needs to be done to do that than it might seem from the outset. And
that's
you
just
get
to
into
meet
it.
Minimum qualifications too. If you want a real good car.
Yeah, to your point, we're realizing, hey,
minimums.
As we're putting the cage in, if I'm gonna change my seating position, this is my one and only chance to do it, because it has to be done as the cage is getting put in. Because once the cage is in there and it's welded and the seat is welded in, the ability to change stuff like that gets.
It's possible, but it's cutting and welding, and hopefully you're not affecting something that is a certified homologated.
You might have to relog with the car,
right? Yeah,
because you have to cut this out, move the main hoop back, whatever. You kind of have to. There's certain points of starting over again that get pretty big there, but you know that now. But if you're coming into this new, having never done that level of fabrication or build on a car, this is where it could seem like, well, I'm getting a cage put in, it's only going to take a couple months. Oh, but I want to make sure that it fits right, or I want to make sure that this is that. This is kind of one of the things we ran into with the standalone, which is do you want all mil-spec connectors? So that they're all totally waterproof and all that sort of thing? Well, yeah. Shit, probably yes. And then
you see... not even the tip of that iceberg.
Right.
Can go real deep.
Hey, how many sensors do you want to add? Because if you want to add sensors, we're doing the wiring right now. You need to know all the sensors that you need. Okay.
And there's stuff you can do to future-proof that a bit too, right? And this is all stuff that comes with time. It's if you're building a harness, leave 4 or 5 extra wires in there that just don't go anywhere.
Or right? Pins that are not used, so you can expand and add things. For sure. But it's if you're trying to do all this on a timetable, all a timetable does is it's basically exponential stress. Like the closer you get to that like set deadline that you've given yourself, all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, what if what could I do to make it so that this cage build, instead of taking 6 months, takes 2 months?
Yeah.
And
why is what I'll ask you.
Yeah.
There are some people that enjoy the stress of timetables, right? There's people that
there's some people that feel like they need the stress of the timetable to keep things moving forward.
That, yeah. I'm a hardcore procrastinator.
Right.
But there are people that love like the rally night, right? With like, blew the transmission up. There's a junkyard 4 hours away. We can make it there. We convinced them to let us do it at night, to pull the transmission. We'll get back. We'll be back by 2 a.m.
Right.
We can get the transmission swapped. Park exposés at 8. That gives us 1 minute to have a gas station hot dog and 3 minutes to take a shit.
Right.
So we're good. Let's get
let's
and
do
there's
this.
People that love, and that's great. That's their escape on their weekend, right? They go out there, they blast through that. That is what a rally is to them.
Right.
And so, there's people that enjoy it. But if that's not 100%. You, or if you're not sure if that's you, go volunteer for somebody. They'd be happy to have you get their gas station hot dogs for them.
Yeah. But the even bigger point is, as a deadline starts to loom closer, and you now feel the pressure, you want to get your car done, you have to realize too, when you're having somebody that works at a shop or does this piece of fabrication as their job, like this is what they do, they likely do not enjoy that kind of crunch time.
No. They're happy to do it for money.
And there's probably a bunch of
potentially,
other
but not always.
Not always. But it's their right to say these are our hours, our 10 to 5.
Right. Right. I mean, so that's where that can be in and of itself, if you've given yourself this deadline and things are getting closer to it, and you're trying to kind of come up with these alternates, that can be something that stresses a relationship, and it can be a point of frustration where, especially, estimates for when things get done.
Oh, yeah.
This can also be, this is kind of like the flip side of it. Where a shop would give you an estimate for like, hey, this is when this thing seems done, and it seems to you like, oh, I need a completely custom fabricated cage with all these strange requirements. How long is it going to take you? 3 months. Okay, that seems like a reasonable amount of time to you. They're giving you that number, but shops can get themselves in trouble by giving you finite estimates of when things are going to get done too. And it's one of those, it happens not uncommonly.
Frequently, it's not that. I would not count on any estimate of time ever being accurate.
Right. And if you've built a lot of race car stuff and you know this going in, then when you say, all right, how long is it going to take to have all this crazy custom work done? Oh, this much of time. And okay, well, there's things can come up, things can happen, and it's going to take longer than that. But if you don't know that and you haven't been through that a bunch of times or a handful of times to kind of build in a buffer in your own mind, you can really kind of
one thing everybody's got to keep in mind, businesses like that, you're not the only one on their schedule.
Right.
Your deadline, there's many other people with that deadline or one sooner, and maybe they were in line before you.
And they probably have more money than you.
They have more money than you. There's so many factors that can influence that you got to take it all with a grain of salt.
Yep.
And like it said, like I was saying, it kind of pays to have incremental goals that you can achieve that aren't necessarily this is my deadline. I need to have this done by this time.
And when you're talking about something that needs to be done that is custom is basically like one word that means this is going to take a while. and when
we don't know what it's going to take.
And just when you're dealing with a cage fabrication, I mean, it could literally take 200 hours. If you would actually look, and keep track of every hour and minute that was spent doing a thing, it could take a couple hundred hours to fabricate and install a roll cage. I mean, maybe even longer than that. Maybe I'm even underestimating
And the longest part of that may not be even the fabrication and installing the cage. It may be doing the prep work that you should have done before the chassis was delivered. Right. Pull your seam sealer. Take out brackets you don't need. Get stuff out of the way. Make room for stuff. Talk to your cage builder about how they plan on doing the roof on the top. Right. Do you need to have the roof panel off?
Right.
Are they going to sink the cage into the floor to do it? Are they using plinth boxes?
Right.
There's a bunch of ways. And if these questions or the words that we're saying right now don't make sense to you, that's fine. But you're now completely in the hands of whoever's giving you the advice on how to do it.
And just like having that level of time put in, like, if you're going to estimate something that's going to take 1 hour to 2 hours and it takes 2.5 hours, 3 hours, or an hour and a half instead, like that's a pretty close estimate. It feels like it's pretty reasonable. But like now, if you stretch the amount of time put into 200 hours,
right?
And okay, well now I'm off by that same like 10 or 15%. I mean, that could be,
now 250 to 2,000 hours.
Mm-hmm. Right. And it's like if you're off, it's an extra 50 hours. I mean, how much time in days does it take to find 50 hours of time to put into a project like that? That's where, big projects like that, the accordion of the time that it actually takes to finish it is like the scale is way different, and it can feel like, why is this taking so much longer? And it's like, well, because this is really complicated and it involves a lot of man hours, and it's until you, to a certain extent, until you really actually have to fabricate something yourself, and you realize like how much time it takes to take a thing and modify the thing and then test fit it and go back and forth 5 different times, like go back to the grinder, take a little bit more off, nope, still not there, grind a little bit, test fit it again, like hours can evaporate when you're trying to do something like that. And there's so many steps of building a race car that is kind of equivalent to that.
And will you compromise when you get bored of it or unmotivated or run out of time? You need to have a plan for that. I told myself with this build, I will likely be disappointed by the time scale, and I will likely not be able to afford everything that I want to do to the car. But what would I allow myself to compromise on versus what would I wait and work another paycheck to make up for, or stuff like that. So like anticipate being hung up and being disappointed and stuff like that, because it will happen. And if the first time you thought to yourself, oh man, I may not make this race, is a week before that race when you don't have a car together yet, then you're going to be scrambling and not knowing what to do. But if you've already had some conversation with your family, your crew, yourself, whoever, then that's already set up for, okay, guys, we knew we were going to be here at this point. We're going to buckle down and get to it. Or we knew we were going to be here at this point. We're not going to be able to do the so-and-so that we thought we were going to do. Or we knew we were going to be at this point. We're not going to make this event. It's okay. Move our goalposts to the next event. And then also be aware of the forever shifting goalposts too, right? Like it's, it's the classic car guy thing for the forum era, we'll say, like the pre-Facebook car group, but the forum era of car people is the forever project.
Man, it's a pitfall. I mean, one thing that, like, as you're saying that, the thing that dawned on me is like especially if you've never entered a race before, like the worst thing you could do is actually like pick a race on the calendar. But even worse than that, like, oh, this is 9 months out. This should not be a problem. And then like enter the race, pay the entry fee before you even have the car. Like, I would hope that people don't do that to themselves, but like.
CHCA doesn't charge your card unless you take a green flag on the weekend, so enter all the races you want.
All right. But it's like, again, like with this timeline, like if you actually pick a date and you know that this, and like go and enter, like that's where you can really put yourself into into a difficult situation there. So don't enter a race until you've got the car. That would be the simple answer.
Like I was saying, set incremental goals. Be willing to compromise on time to meet your goals, and make sure you're not compromising on things that are really important to you,
or that you can't
values. That are values you hold that you want to happen. Like time is one thing that you should be the most willing to compromise on in any kind of race car project.
If you get into a rush, you're going to make compromises, and the more of a rush you get into, the greater those compromises can be. Potentially.
My goal for the race car build, and this goes back to why I didn't have much to report, for like the last month and this month is just live life.
Right.
Like work-life balance kind of thing, right?
When
like,
you're working on this big project, like it can really kind of be a black hole that just sucks you in, and just like every
like,
thing that you're thinking about
ride
is just,
my bike, eat healthy here and there, drink as hard as I want to when I want to, hang out with the lady, hang out with friends. Been going pontoon boating.
That sounds
I'm
pretty awesome.
a lake guy now,
Right.
So I may just trade the car in for a
pontoon
drag boat or something like that.
Oh my gosh.
Seen some pretty sick videos recently of big horsepower pontoon boats,
Big,
man.
yes.
getting that space, that breather. I mean, sometimes that can, like, if you're feeling really under the gun with the schedule and like just saying, you know what, I'm going to take a month off and I'm not going to think about anything. Like, especially if there's things that are in motion in the background and it's just taking longer than expected.
Yeah, live your life.
Work taking a month off.
Plan, research stuff.
Or to
talk
that
to
point,
people.
like taking a month off to just think about things.
Yeah.
Like not even there are times maybe when things just can't get done on a project, and like you said, you're thinking about your seat position, like the rules you have to stick to. Like there are times when you just have to sit back and say, you know what, I need to breathe. And even if I want to work on the project, all I can do is think about it.
And if that relieves some stress or it helps you reset or reprioritize, I mean, that could be a huge step in the right direction.
Yeah. Don't give up. Don't become a goal-obsessed, tunnel vision weirdo.
Right.
Find the middle ground somewhere in between that's sustainable. Because don't build your car and don't build your racing career for this season or the next race. Build it for as long as you want to have it for, right? So build it for the next 10 years. Build a car for the next 10 years. Know that doesn't matter how hard you work on a car, you could go out there in the very first corner, wrap it around a tree, and whatever. That can happen. But build it for the next 10 years.
Yeah, what this makes me think of is Pikes Peak. Pikes Peak is a really fickle race. And there were like this year, weird weather all of practice week, and then amazing weather on race day. Last year, amazing weather all through race week, and then on race day, horrible.
People work hard, go broke, ruin relationships for that race, and then don't even get to run all the way to the top.
Exactly. I have seen breakdowns in the pits coming back down after the race because something happened. They didn't qualify well. Weather set in. And they were thinking, like, this is it. This is going to be my one race. This is going to be where I make my mark. Everything went great for the whole race week. Weather came in. They only got a half a run. They didn't get to set any kind of times. Nothing for them actually was mattered because they didn't get a full run compared to all these other competitors that did. Yeah. And that I've seen a lot of frustration, because, I mean, it's a halo event for them, but man, that mountain, it has a personality. And
you put all your eggs in a basket that you don't have the handle for, you're gonna break eggs.
Yeah,
and if you're not ready to have broken eggs, then I don't know, you're gonna get spit out, right? Like you're gonna get spit out the backside, angry, broke, tattered relationships, and you'll have ruined your life, and it's not worth it. There's no one that's like, I'm gonna keep my eye on that new guy.
Right.
If he does well, big contract coming, we'll get him a yacht. No, man. Like I said earlier, no one gives a fuck about you.
Yeah.
Do this for you and have fun.
It is. Yeah. So it's interesting to see the number of teams that come out, they run 1 year, and then they're just gone. Like
Rally is the same way. A lot of people, this is it, man. I'm so good at dirt rally. I'm gonna get out there. They put all their money in that basket.
Yeah.
And then maybe they crash. Maybe they get a flat tire they weren't prepared for. Something, right? And then they just boop. Which is why, for one thing, when you ask, how do I get into rally, no one's going to say, just build your car, man. They're going to say, come out, volunteer for an event.
Right.
Or the old timers are going to cold shoulder you and be like, well, here's this fucking shit again.
Right.
Right? Like, another one just going to come up and blow up and leave, right? Like, it's but that's not... It's the pain of watching people do that too, right? Like some of the people that all right, fucking New Jack, who do you think you are? Like, oh look, another idiot trying to come in. You're getting that response because, it sucks to see people come in motivated and get burnt constantly. Right?
Well, in the rally community, rally is probably one of the more expensive forms of motorsports to get into. because it's not even from the cost of the build or the car.
You can make a cheap car.
It's like, man, again, like whatever rally it is, you look at the entry list, half those people are going to finish, half of them are not.
Yeah.
And of the people that don't finish, that means that they broke something.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to try and fix that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like,
you ever want to find out how much you're willing to pay for a part?
yeah,
Be looking for it in a small town when you need to get ready for the next day, and there's only one of them around.
right,
You're going to be throwing down $500 for an alternator, no problem.
right,
Like, even though you would never think about doing that
right
now. But yeah.
But that's that kind of that environment. It can be really, really stressful, and like what rally needs is it needs like a group of like, I don't know, somewhere between 40 and 60 people / teams across the country that are going to enter a good number of events to keep the events so that the event just breaks even and that the event can keep happening, right? Like I remember, Rally Colorado used to be up in Steamboat. It was in Steamboat for a long time, but that race was always like just because of the location and the fact of where it was in the schedule. It was hard to get people to go, and like that event was always teetering on going out, and eventually it did. Like it did have to shut down, and there was a number of years where we didn't have that, but it's because they couldn't get people involved. So like the rally community as a whole, like they really need like 50, 60 teams across the country that are going to enter half the events. And so they want people that have a good experience and are able to come back, and so
you're going to feel like the event owes you something too, because you paid hundreds of dollars, and over the weekend you're expending thousands of dollars just to get to a weekend where you're going to drive for a few hours.
Yeah.
So you're going to feel like the event owes you because you did that. To some extent, I guess they do, right? Mm-hmm. But the people putting that event on have volunteered thousands of hours of their time.
It is
just to
stunning.
make it happen.
Yeah.
Out of the kindness of their heart and because of a passion for the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't Formula One where Bernie Eccleston is making billions and laughing on his yacht about, ha ha ha, the teams are at my bidding or whatever like that.
Most of the people that
Rupert Barrington driving on his time off out to Rangeley to make sure the roads still exist because they keep flooding, or to plead with the town for a spot for the pits, or using every one of that, a couple $100 of your entry fee, using every one of those dollars just to pay for the permissions for the BLM land or something like that, right? Like it's they're working so hard, and again, they're giving you value. They're giving you time value, research value, because they want to see people do stuff and have fun. They have a passion for it, right? Before Rupert, the organizers were the Chiarellis for Rally Colorado, who were competitors themselves and just didn't want to see the event die after a couple of years.
Yeah. And it got to the point where it took so much time. Like that's where they had to take.
It was very exhausting on them. They had day jobs.
Yeah.
Then they have their own rally car.
Yeah.
And then they had that event to put on, which took more time than those other two things combined, and they made no money doing it. So they're volunteering their time just to try and keep the sport alive.
Right.
So, yeah, sure, you paid some money. You want to have a good time, right? But you're paying money to try and help a sport continue to exist. And if that's not okay with you, then I don't think motorsports on the amateur level is for you.
Right.
Right? So
it could be lost. Especially in rally, and hill cones, I'm sure are largely the same way. Where
hill cones barely break even.
Yeah, it's like there's so much, like there's so many people volunteering their time to a degree to which you just don't have a perception of, just to let you participate in this event.
It's the motorsports hangs on,
especially grassroots.
Just grassroots for sure. I mean, high level motorsports is a business.
Yeah, high level.
High level, not anything that you're.
I'm
pretty confident no one listening to this podcast will ever be a professional driver.
Meaning that you're getting paid to show up and drive. Yeah,
right.
That is such rarefied.
No,
I mean that's hard to do.
In the off chance that one of the two of you does end up making money, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll get on my knees and apologize to you.
Right. You'll clip this and get back at him.
That's right. But like, if that's not okay with you, then you need to reassess what you're looking at getting into motorsports for, because you will do nothing but lose money.
Right.
But you will have a really good time if you go about it the right way.
Right.
I wouldn't not do it by any means. I don't regret anything I ever did getting into this. Is what I'm trying to say. Like, this is, I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
100%.
But this is where, like, before you even build a car, like, this is why, I mean, we've said it many times, is like, volunteer for a team. Go and try and work in the pits with the team. Volunteer for an event. It is one of their spotters or something.
And don't expect to make money doing that either.
Well, no, but then you
right. But
you see, you get
Absolutely.
involved, and you're gonna realize, like, hey, I'm volunteering my time. I'm doing like corner workers at NASA events and stuff like that. Like, you really need corner workers. A corner worker, that is something where that really helps the day go.
Yeah.
And like, push comes to shove, there could be a scenario where you as driving, your life might be saved by this corner worker that is able to get you out of your car quickly.
Yeah.
Like, or stop someone careening at you.
I would love to pay $100 more per event for more money and training for corner workers in general, whether they're whatever marshal at a rally or a corner worker at a track, right?
Yeah.
Like, because those are extremely important places.
But it's easy to overlook how important those positions are, and maybe one of the best ways is either to be in a circumstance where, you now your life is affected by them doing their job, or you being on the other side of it and participating and being a corner worker or a marshal.
Yeah.
That just to see what training is involved in, like, just even having that briefing of, like, okay, you're going out to this here's what you're watching out for, here's what you need to use your flags for. Like, okay, well, these are all scenarios that can happen and probably have happened at various different rallies or tracks or whatever. I mean, yeah, there's a lot there.
Yeah, there's a lot. The last thing I'll say on the topic, because I think we're probably running on time here a little bit. If you have played a video game and you think that you will show up and there is some ladder for you to climb, there's not.
Right.
Maybe in some particular motorsports, right? Like, if you have the financial backing outside of motorsports to trying to work your way up from karts, and you're 6 years old right now and listening to this podcast, there's somewhat of a ladder for you to climb as you work through, like, the formula classes and stuff like that. But at no point is it like, you did well at this event, this sponsor would like to talk to you, good job, now you're in Formula One, driver.
The vast majority of motorsports it's because it's put on by people that love it, and it's participated in by people that love doing it. It's not trying to turn it into a career or move up the ladder and get into a faster car.
There are a couple people that will sort of do that, but they usually come from an extreme level of support, either behind the scenes or something like that. Whether it's their own money or family ties, or they've been hustling 100% for a really, really, really long time.
Or right. I mean, luck can come into it.
Luck, sure.
I mean, they somehow something that they do gets seen by somebody that has the ability to sponsor them to such a degree that all of a sudden now that changes their ability to compete, which then somehow gets attention.
Right. And remember that
scale.
Those sponsors probably aren't paying for race results. They're probably paying for social media presence.
There's true, and it's hard. There's no definitive roadmap to that. I mean, it's like you can. There are guys that are involved in racing and are successful for many, many, many years, and they're doing it all on their own dime, and nothing ever happens. And then there's other guys that come in and they have a little bit of success, and then some kind of serendipitous event happens, and then they get a sponsorship. And then it's like, well, what happened there? Like, to a certain extent, you have to participate to have the opportunity for something like that to happen. You've got to be there. You've got to have some kind of result. You've got to have some kind of history. But there's no guarantee that just being out there and running and having, a depth of results and success is going to then let you then move on to something else higher and faster.
Look at your idols in motorsports, probably like a Ken Block or a Charles Pastrana or something like that, right? They not only are exceptional at what they were doing, whatever your opinions of Ken Block's career in driving was, he was better than your average driver. whatever, and Travis Pastrana is an exceptional athlete in whatever he's doing. Brandon Semenuk is an exceptional athlete in whatever he's doing. These are people who have exceptional practices for optimizing whatever they're doing. Whether it's backflips or driving cars kind of stuff, right? But they are hustling even harder behind the scenes, right? Ken Block famously, right, started DC Shoes.
Yeah.
And he was able to create enough steam that it supported itself.
Yeah. And he kind of applied that to then driving, like, for himself. Like, he had figured out a path, a formula to found a company. I mean, think about business success. I mean, I can tell you it's not easy. There's a lot of challenges.
It's a guy who didn't just, like, wait for someone to come in, too.
Right.
It points to the fact that, like, having these goals for yourself and trying to achieve them and reaching out and putting in the work is what really gets you somewhere. Not just like, oh, my goal is to win an event. I won that event. Why don't I have a sponsor now?
Right.
It's like,
right.
no, now I won that event. I'm going to go to win 3 events this next season. I'm going to win the whole season. Like, having those incremental goals and building is what gets you somewhere versus like having this expectation and meeting one goal. You know, it's now I've met that goal. What's my next thing? Where am I going from?
This is where I think having the long-term goal, and especially just a long-term passion and just an honest enjoyment of doing the thing. Like, if you want to have, like, fun doing it, like, and enjoy the activity of going out and racing, hill climbs, rally, road racing, time attack, whatever it is, like, if you have a long-term goal of, like, I just want to do it. I just want to do this thing. I will put my best effort into it. I'm going to try and get better. I'm going to try and get faster. But I just want to do this activity. Like, this is what I want to do with my car, with a car. Then you're going to have a really good chance of success, because your measure of success is I'm out there and I'm doing it. And honestly, like, for a lot of motorsports, just getting out there and doing it and having a car and getting a car from point A to point B so you can enter and run this race, that there's a significant amount of effort and time and money that just to get that participation.
Still, the most expensive part of racing for me is logistics of racing.
Sure.
Not the car or whatever.
It's the truck.
It's the truck, and the trailer, and you can do it cheaper, but then you're like, man, I would pay a little bit more money to be out of this wind and dust right now. So then you get an enclosed trailer, and then, and so it's but I love it. I mean, shit. We said all this stuff about how bad it is and this, that, whatever, but we're still doing it. So
but this is the point, is that like the motivation for this conversation, for this topic, was kind of like we started out as is. We know that we've run into so many things that haven't worked. Well, like, if we can impart a little bit of that experience to somebody that's starting out, because we run into people that are starting out and come up and ask you, hey, what should I do? Or this is what I want to do. Is this a good plan? Is this going to make sense? Well, all right, well, let's try and, can we quantify a little bit of that and get it out here to hopefully, help out some of those people that are getting involved, and so that it's a smoother process. It's a more positive transition into getting into motorsports, and then that's what's better for all of us as participants in all of the events that are going on, because like, really, I mean, motorsports is going through a weird stretch right now where there's a bit of a resurgence, but a couple of years ago, I mean, it was like there was events that were struggling or that just went away because there was just nobody doing it. And so I guess from a selfish standpoint, as a competitor, like, well, if you're racing all by yourself and
it's not a race.
It's not a race, and if there's not enough competitors to keep the race going and the races go away, everybody loses.
Yeah. Yeah, no, we're all on the same team in grassroots motorsports.
Yep.
And you're trying to beat each other, but we still want there to be other people to beat.
Yes, indeed. Indeed.
So, I don't know. It's
a hard question, but it is. Man, there's so many pitfalls that you can fall into. They can derail a build.
Yeah. And
so hopefully this gives you a little bit to be better prepared, so that you kind of know a little bit more of what to expect and have maybe more reasonable expectations of what the process is, so that process is less stressful. so that process is more positive.
And we'll get hit.
Yeah.
But it's worth it to keep fighting.
Yeah.
But the weird thing is we're all fighting on the same team against the never-ending entropy of lack of participation. So.
Right. Indeed.
Well,
good places in anything to wrap up. I think you've said a good
I got a banger to leave on.
Okay. All right.
BMWs are the new Hondas.
Soundbite achieved.
Touche. I was thinking that on the way in here. I saw a BMW. I'm like, BMW guys are the new Honda guys.
Could be.
Fight me.
Get them in the comments below.
Right. Well, I tell you, we'll sign off here. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks for your support as always. Follow Tasso of OTC Racing. I think I've got the build thread up for at least a lot of your current installments of your build. On
I said, page, so. I mean, I alluded to earlier. I'll tell you everything about my build if it helps you. If you're one of those guys that's like, I could do that. And come on. So I'm literally filming, putting the car together. Yeah. I'm not hiding stuff.
Come volunteer someime and help out a local motorsports legend.
Mm-hmm. Legend. But yeah, I mean, it's just a good community if you come in, earn your spot, I guess, family.
Yeah.
If you bring your 2J Supra to my shop, you can't find the tools you need in here, then you don't belong anywhere near a car. So
that's fair.
It's a good community once you get into it. So get into it, be humble, shut up. You'll have a turn.
Yeah, it all works out.
I don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay. Well, again, thanks for watching. Thanks for your support as always. Until next time, stay tuned to Flatirons Tuning. All right, now.
BMW's the new Hondas. I'm saying it. I'm going to double down on this, too.
Okay.
BMW guys are all rich enough
This will be the extra stuff for our members. Yeah. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to the Flatirons Syndicate Motorsports Podcast. Once again, we'd like to let you know that your support is what makes this show possible. Be sure to check out our online store at flatirons.com for any of your aftermarket or OEM Subaru parts needs. And as always, stay tuned with Flatirons Tuning.